And this guy convinces her to become a pretty girl, and sure enough, she slowly turns into a pretty, starts shaving her legs and wears short skirts and, and puts some lipstick on and makeup.
Brian Wilson passed away in June 2025, but what surprised many people was not only the loss, but also the legacy he left behind, a fortune that made his family cry. What was behind the millions of dollars? Why did even his will cause a stir in the media? Let's explore the touching and complex story of Brian Wilson's spiritual and material legacy, health crisis and death. As early as the 1960s, when the Beach Boys were at their peak, Brian Wilson began a bitter battle with his mental health. He was diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder, a condition that combines symptoms of bipolar disorder and schizophrenia. Long-term bouts of paranoia, severe depression, and an oversensitivity to sound prevented him from performing regularly with the band, and for many years he lived almost as a recluse in his own home. As he grew older, Brian's condition worsened. He was diagnosed with severe dementia, unable to care for himself, and gradually lost his sense of time, space, and even his loved ones. However, what made the psychological shock irreparable was the sudden passing of his wife, Melinda Ledbetter, in January 2024. Melinda was not only Brian's wife, but also his companion and protector for more than 3 decades. She had strongly fought against individuals and organizations that manipulated his health in the past, and had accompanied Brian to re-emerge and restore his reputation when everyone thought he had faded away. This loss caused Brian Wilson to completely collapse psychologically, and from then on, he could no longer make decisions related to his health and assets. After the death of Melinda Ledbetter, his wife and pillar of support for more than 30 years, Brian Wilson's life quickly spiraled out of control. With no one close to him to help him run his daily life and protect him from financial risks or outside manipulation, the family was forced to file for legal guardianship in early 2024. This was a sensitive but necessary decision, stemming from the fact that Brian was no longer able to perceive or make decisions regarding his health and assets due to severe dementia. In court filings, the family said he required 24/7 support and was no longer able to care for himself or fully understand what was going on around him. The court then appointed 2 of Brian's longtime friends, Leanne Hard and Gene Sievers, as his official guardians. Not only are they close friends, but they have also played a key role in protecting Brian's image, musical legacy, and life over the years. Ian Sievers is Brian's close music manager, while Leanne Hard is a family supporter who has worked closely with Melinda in the past. Their appointment is not only a legal matter, but also a reflection of the desire to preserve stability, privacy, and dignity for a great artist like Brian in his final years. On June 11th, 2025, Brian Wilson, the soul of the Beach Boys, one of the most influential musical geniuses of the 20th century, breathed his last at his home in Los Angeles at the age of 82. This sad news was quickly confirmed by his family through a brief but emotional announcement, emphasizing that he passed away peacefully surrounded by loved ones after a long battle with physical and mental health problems. Brian's death is not only a personal loss for his family and friends, but also a pain for the entire music world, because he was not simply a musician, but someone who changed the way an entire generation perceived sound, from the pure melodies of youth to the subtle depths of the human soul that he expressed through the classic albums Pet Sounds and Smile. The family wrote, "Brian has left an unfillable void in the world of music, but his legacy will live on, inspiring countless generations of artists and music lovers." Following his death, artists and fans around the world expressed their condolences and recalled the extraordinary contributions Brian made over more than 60 years. Tributes flooded social media, newspapers, and especially during live performances, where people observed a few minutes of silence to honor him. Although his life ended in the regret of his fans and family, the legacy that Brian Wilson left behind still makes people feel nostalgic. Not only are the immortal melodies that resonate through many generations, but also the huge fortune, both material and spiritual, that is posing difficult questions on the shoulders of his family. Why did a fortune that seemed like a blessing make his relatives cry? A huge fortune has 2 shades. Despite facing health crises in his later years, Brian Wilson left behind a huge legacy, much of it from his prolific musical career. With hundreds of compositions considered classics of the 20th century, his legacy is not only artistically valuable, but also commercially valuable, making his family both proud and moved when they received it. First of all, Brian Wilson's biggest source of income comes from music copyright. As the composer or co-composer of more than 300 songs, including immortals such as Good Vibrations, God Only Knows, California Girls, and Wouldn't It Be Nice, Brian continues to receive royalties from broadcasting, performing, streaming, and use in films and advertisements. According to Forbes and Rolling Stone 2024, his total royalties throughout his career amounted to $70–80 million, with annual earnings reaching $3–5 million at peak years. Not only did he not stop at copyright, but Brian Wilson also co-founded Brother Records, Inc., a company established in 1966 to control the songs of the Beach Boys. This was not only a bold decision at the time, but also a strategic move that helped him and the band members retain ownership of the recordings. As of 2025, Brother Records still holds the copyright to more than 140 songs, and the Beach Boys brand is valued at $50–75 million. Brian is said to hold about 25–30% of the shares, equivalent to about $12–18 million in assets from this brand and music copyright catalog. In addition to music, Brian Wilson also owns a valuable real estate portfolio in California. He bought a mansion in Beverly Hills in 1999 for about $2.1 million. By 2025, the house had increased in value to approximately $7 million. In addition, he owned a beachfront vacation home in Malibu, estimated to be worth $4–5 million, according to data from Zillow and the LA Times Real Estate. In total, his real estate value at the time of his death was about $11–12 million. When all assets are added together, from copyrights, brand equity, music earnings, and real estate, Brian Wilson's net worth is estimated to be between $80 and $100 million, according to Celebrity Net Worth and People, June 2025. That's an impressive number for any artist, especially one who has battled mental illness for decades. But the sheer size of his fortune raises questions. Who will manage his legacy after he dies? And will his surviving family be able to keep his artistic spirit alive, or just continue it as a profit machine? It's something that has both moved and troubled the family. As the title of the video suggests, Brian Wilson leaves a legacy that will make his family cry. If material value can be measured in money, then the spiritual legacy that Brian Wilson left behind is priceless, unquantifiable, irreplaceable, and will live forever in the hearts of music lovers around the world. Songs like God Only Knows, Wouldn't It Be Nice, Good Vibrations in My Room, or Don't Worry Baby were not only hits of the 1960s, but also transcended the borders of popular music to become part of the American cultural treasure. Many of them regularly appear in the best songs of all time charts voted by Rolling Stone, BBC, and Pitchfork. God Only Knows alone was once called the most beautiful love song ever written by Paul McCartney. Not only outstanding for its melody, Brian Wilson's musical legacy is also special for its innovative spirit and creative courage. With his 1966 album Pet Sounds, he broke all the molds of music production at the time, using unusual instruments such as bicycle bells, animal skeletons, toy pianos, and a rare electronic instrument called the theremin to create complex and emotional layers of sound. Pet Sounds is not only considered by critics to be a pioneer of modern pop music, but also directly inspired masterpieces such as the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Brian Wilson is often hailed as the Beethoven of pop, the man who brought popular music closer to scholarly art. In the last decade of his life, when he was no longer able to compose as he once did, his legacy continued to spread to new generations. Music students, young producers, and modern indie artists such as Animal Collective, Tame Impala, and Lana Del Rey all cited Brian as a creative role model, someone who heard things no one else heard. When he passed away on June 11th, 2025, it wasn't just his fellow artists and colleagues who mourned him. Millions of fans around the world came together to remember him as a symbol of compassion, vulnerability, and creative strength in the face of adversity. Social media was flooded with memories of his music, and touching personal stories from a father who put his son to sleep, listening to pet sounds, to a depressed patient who was lifted by Surf's Up amid a crisis. Under the bright light of his legacy, from his hundreds of millions of dollars to his immortal musical treasures, what makes Brian Wilson's family cry? Are there cracks, losses, and voids behind his legacy that are hard to fill? Let's listen to the emotional stories from those who remain. His family, the people who loved him the most. Family. Tears after glory. At the moment of Brian Wilson's passing, not only was he music world shocked, but his children also cried in deep loss. On social media, his children not only shared the sad news, but also expressed their love, gratitude, and unforgettable memories of their father, who devoted his life to music and family. Carnie Wilson. Brian's biological daughter, with his first wife Marilyn Rovell, wrote a touching message on Instagram. "I couldn't breathe when I heard the news of my father's passing. You are every strand of my DNA, every emotion, every memory. You are the first piano sound I heard, the inspiration for every note I sang, the person who taught me to love the beauty of difference." As a member of the famous band Wilson Phillips, Carnie was deeply influenced by her father, not only in music, but also in the way she looked at life with sensitivity and honesty. Wendy Wilson, Carnie's sister, also shared a childhood photo with her father, along with a short but heartbreaking caption, "Dad, you were my first and last musical light." Dakota Rose Wilson. Brian's youngest daughter, with his second wife, Melinda Ledbetter, posted a short video of the two playing the piano together in the living room with the caption, "Dad once said, music is how I talk when I can't talk. Now I'll listen to your music and keep talking to you forever." In addition to the 3 biological children, Brian and Melinda's 4 adopted children, Daria, Delaney Dillon, and Dash, also expressed their grief through profound gratitude. They called Brian the most gentle father, a teacher who never forced, and an inspiration with unconditional love. The pain of Brian Wilson's family did not begin from the moment he took his last breath, but had been simmering for many years before that, as his health gradually declined. In his final years, Brian was no longer the artist who could dominate the stage or studio as before. He became almost completely dependent on his family for care, both physically and mentally. And it was during that fragile period that a wave of controversy broke out, causing his family to be under pressure to care for their father while facing public scrutiny. After his wife, Melinda Ledbetter, who was Brian's wife of nearly 30 years, and his greatest support, passed away in January 2024, the debate over legal guardianship erupted fiercely. The Wilson family filed a petition with the court to become his official guardian on the grounds of protecting him from financial and psychological risks. However, this move was immediately questioned by some in the public. Some people thought they were trying to gain control of Brian's assets worth tens of millions of dollars. In the face of such rumors, his family, especially his children and 2 longtime friends appointed by the court as co-guardians, Leanne Hard and Gene Sievers, did not respond with loud statements. Instead, they chose to demonstrate their love and responsibility through concrete and consistent actions. Caring for Brian 24/7 at his home in Los Angeles, avoiding him from having to live in a nursing home or a mental hospital, which had haunted this music legend for many years. Not selling music copyrights or transferring control of the Beach Boys brand, despite many offers from major music companies. This is something that experts and fans admire greatly, knowing that the family could earn hundreds of millions of dollars from this brand. Protecting his privacy until the last days of his life, not a single sick photo, not a single article exploiting Brian's declining condition was released. All information is officially accessed by the media with the permission of the Guardian. Thanks to that, the public gradually changed its perspective. From skepticism, they turned to sympathy and understood that the family is not trying to control a monument, but is only trying to preserve what is left of a father, a husband, a fragile soul that once created immortal love songs. And perhaps that sincerity is the reason why the name Brian Wilson, even though he has passed away, is still mentioned with all respect and love. After the tears and emotional messages from his family fans, still have a big question. Where will Brian Wilson's assets and legacy go? Who will continue to preserve his music? And will there be any conflict surrounding the will of a legend? Share your will and plans. After Brian Wilson's passing, the public and the media have been following a big question: who will inherit the huge spiritual and material fortune he left behind? As of mid-June 2025, Brian Wilson's official will has not been widely announced to the public. However, according to many sources from inheritance lawyers and experts in the music industry, the division of his assets is being handled carefully and with a clear direction to respect his wishes, as well as ensure the rights of his remaining loved ones. According to the practice of music assets and rights in the US, the ownership of shares in Brother Records Inc., the company co-founded by Brian Wilson in 1966, will most likely be transferred to his children and two legal guardians appointed by the court, John Sievers and Leanne Hard. These are people who not only represent the Wilson family's interests in legal matters, but have also been directly involved in his music career over the years. In addition, the remaining assets from royalties music publishing company dividends and real estate portfolios in Los Angeles and Beverly Hills are also said to be divided proportionally among his 7 children, including Carney Wendy Dakota and 4 adopted children, not stopping at inheriting material assets. Brian Wilson's family is also promoting a series of plans to preserve and promote the immortal artistic legacy that he left for the world music industry. First of all, according to the initial announcement from the family representative, they are establishing the Brian Wilson Foundation, a non-profit organization tasked with preserving, restoring, protecting, and promoting all works and documents related to Brian's career. This fund is also expected to support young musicians in the field of composing and producing music in the unique creative style that Brian Wilson left behind. In particular, Carney and Wendy Wilson, Brian's 2 most prominent daughters, and also members of the famous music group Wilson Phillips, have expressed their desire to continue performing their father's works, not only to pay tribute, but also to spread the love of music to the new generation. His music is part of our DNA, Carney said. We're going to sing God Only Knows and all those songs as if he was still standing there with us on stage. Hollywood is also getting ready to continue Brian Wilson's story on film. According to Variety, both Netflix and Disney are in final negotiations to produce an official biopic about Brian's life and career. The project, which has the full blessing of his family and is expected to be advised by his children, promises to be the most honest and moving portrait yet of the Beethoven of American pop. What do you think makes Brian Wilson's